It's 5:30. Call the meeting to order, beginning with roll call.
Carl Brown,
Deanna Thoman here.
Stork present.
Sellergan.
Andrew Lewis.
Nicole Villanueva.
Margaret Beck.
Okay. Public discussion of anything not on the agenda. All right. Certificate of appropriateness.
The first project is 430 Brown Street in the Brown Street Historic District. It's located here on the corner of Van Buren and Brown. This is the front facade of the house. You can see that it has a front porch under the full width of the house. This is a gable roof house, as you can see here, with a full dormer. Because this is a gambrel roof, this house that is colonial revival is actually part of the subgenre of Dutch colonial. The project, and here's another shot. There was an addition to match done in the 60s or 70s, I believe. And then there was also a new garage that was added more recently. Here's the rear elevation. The project is to add Solitube skylights to the roof. This is some information showing you what they look like. They fit on the roof so that you have this portion on the exterior. The tube allows you to not have the interior portion directly below the skylight, but you can actually redirect this so that you can put the skylight on, say, the north side on the exterior, but then light a portion of the space inside on the south side. For instance, this is the cross-section that was submitted as part of the application. So this would be the central roof ridge. This shows the exterior portion on the outside on what would be the north. Here's like where the addition ties in. And it's letting light into the space on the south side of the roof ridge. And this allows you to have the skylights light something on the south side, but then not have skylights on the front of the house. So here is a roof plan submitted as part of the application. These squares would be the Solitubes, and here's the central roof ridge, so it shows you where they would be located, pretty close to the top of the roof line. Here's the second floor plan, and here again is the central roof ridge. The application says that they are adding light to their attic master bedroom suite into like the bedroom area, which is on this side of the roof ridge, and the bathroom area, which is also, and then potentially here, and the other one goes to another space. Here are some renderings of the house that were also submitted, basically showing that, you know, this area is not going to be visible, at least from the street. We do have up at the end of the road one of our local and National Register landmarks, the Vote Unash House. This is what that house is. And just a view, you know, here you'd be able to see these, but, you know, they're on the back and, you know, they probably would not have a huge impact on the view from the landmark property. During the review process, I just happened to notice that there is this option for this flat version. What you see here is product information, and that shows you some of the interior options, and then how they have exterior options for different types of roof, like shake shingles, regular shingles, slate, some kind of a flat tile roof, Spanish tile metal, all of that. And then they showed this low profile shingle. Currently, the recommendation in the staff report is to approve the project, but using the low profile option instead of the fisheye lens if it will function properly for the project installation. So another issue with this is the fact that Skylights generally, I mean, we have very little in the guidelines about skylights, and we talk about putting them on the back of the house. We had been getting a number of applications that were all similar, and we tended to approve them all the same. And so the commission approved a staff reviewable project for skylights, so a minor review. And that included conditions such as the fact that they're installed on the rear-facing slope, that they're framed in metal as opposed to vinyl, I guess, in a color that blends with the building roof material, and that the skylights are low profile, follow the angle of the roof, and do not include fisheye lenses or other elements that protrude more than 6 inches above the roof surface, and that the skylight is sized to fit between the roof joists and have a length that is no more than 3 times the width. The intent of that, at least, was, your basic rectangular skylight. And so it was the fact that the project using this solo tube did not follow those conditions that the project came to the commission for review instead of being reviewed by staff. Now, since the recommendation was to use the flat, low-profile version if it functions properly, I had sent a message to the contractor, and I hadn't heard back yet. And so just today, I did call the company, and they told me that the flat, low-profile tends to be less expensive than the others, and that you lose about 5% of the light that you would normally gain. But beyond that, the contractor should talk about the feasibility of using that in relationship to the recommendation. So currently, based on what the manufacturer said, I would have revised this to strike the if it will function properly for the project, because it appeared to be that way. And so that's why this is stricken from the recommendation. But depending on, what he has to say in your review, you can either strike that or not, or remove it completely. So typically then, if you guys have any questions.
Okay, commission discussion.
We ask clarifying questions first?
Clarifying questions?
Yeah,
And then discussion? Is that right?
yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any clarifying questions?
So Jessica, we're only approving because it's not the fisheye design type? Or we're only debating approval because it's...
Yeah, it only needed to come to you because of the fisheye. I would actually argue it's also not the standard rectangular one, but, so I think it would, with the Sola tube, whether it was the low profile or not, I think it would have come to you. But the fact that it doesn't follow those guidelines doesn't mean that it needs to be something that you would deny it for.
Any others?
I would just like some more clarity on why the fisheye lens was initially chosen for the project, but it sounds like we may hear more about that momentarily.
Sure,
So,
yeah, and I wouldn't be the one to answer that.
Of course, yeah.
I suppose if it had come to us as the rectangular version, would it have been approved by staff?
Yeah, staff could have approved it. Mhm.
Okay, public comment?
Yep. Just please sign in, Andy.
Hi. Hi, I'm Andy Martin. I am the contractor here. So a couple of things. It's interesting, Jessica, that you got that information from that the flat one would work, because what they told us was that you should not mount the flat ones on a north face slope. It should only be on a south face. So,
Yeah, I didn't clarify that. I didn't give them that much information.
yeah. But yeah, the idea being the fisheye lens would allow that to be, the skylight to be mounted on the back of the house, and then they could get that light in the front of the house. It's particularly in the bedroom and the bathroom are the areas where they just don't have a whole lot of light. That desk area there, actually, because of the size of those windows, does get pretty good light, so that's not as crucial. And then I think they wanted one for the closet, too, but we probably could find a way to just use a regular skylight there, I think, maybe. I don't know. It's a little hard to tell exactly where that falls on the roof, if that's right where that ridge is. I think it is kind of where that gable addition comes off. So that might make a bigger skylight there a little bit difficult too. If it were a 22 by 48 or something like that, trying to fit that onto that little tiny piece of roof might not work either. So the idea being that the domes was the way to go, because that way we would get more light distributed into the room. So I think that's about all I have to say about it.
Great.
I'm happy
Thank
to answer
you.
questions.
Any questions?
So the rectangular ones, did I hear correctly that they're not advised for that side of the house?
Right. They said what we heard was that the low-profile ones, the flat ones, should only be used on a south face, which would put it
South
on the
face.
street face
Okay.
for us. And
What are the dimensions of the fisheye ones?
I think it's roughly 16 by 16.
Okay.
Doesn't-
And they do vary. You can get like a 10-inch unit and a 14, but I think we were looking at maybe it's a 14. It's either 14 or 16, but it is, obviously round.
And there are 5, 6 total? Or more?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think it was 5.
Was it 5?
4 along the roof and then 1
Oh,
on the
yeah.
back.
And one back on the
Yeah,
addition.
that's correct. I was not listening to the question properly, sorry.
Thanks.
And I didn't put all of the submitted images in the PowerPoint, but I don't see that the dimensions are in the other ones, so, yeah. They're like, what, this big?
Yeah, they're like about that big around. They look kind of like those, the propeller roof vent things.
Right.
Except for that they have the dome, the clear dome on them. Anything else? Turbines, that's the word I was looking for.
How high up do they, in the downslope side, how high up do they stick from the roof line?
Oh, on the down, I think it's, it looks like it's maybe a foot on the downward side.
Is this to scale, do you think? Or is this close?
It's close-ish, yeah. I mean, that is a scale drawing, but I think that the unit is pretty close to what the actual dimension of the unit is.
Right. Thank you. Commission discussion.
I have a question for Jessica. Historically, would we have seen something on a roof that would have that shape? Like we were talking about the roof vents?
Yeah, I don't know. The roof vents that look like, I don't know, like a whirligig or whatever, we have not been approving those on the front.
Okay.
But we're also not talking about the front. We're
Right.
talking about the back. So, yeah, we tend to like, solar panels, skylights. We tend to like them to just be rectangular and low profile, blend in with the roof. But yeah, again, this is on the back. So yeah.
I mean, I'm generally very in favor of these changes that allow people to rely more on natural light within their house. And it does sound like, unfortunately, the flat option will not work in this location if it's really to go in the back, and so we can prioritize placement on the back. But of course, and then from the photos, from my quick view, it didn't seem as though the view would be that affected, but of course,
Because that is
Be good to hear
kind
what
of a
others think.
dead end, right? That house at the end is.
It is. And I mean, that's probably the most important property in the neighborhood. It would, it wouldn't matter as much from anywhere else. But yeah, whether or not you think that, they're going to be like here. And so, I guess my professional historic preservation opinion would be that that is not going to have a significant adverse effect to the landmark property.
Yeah, I would say my opinion is that a circle versus a rectangle is not such a big deal. If one is more effective than the other, then we would, I think, based on our commission kind of ethics, go toward the option that was more efficient and provided more light, was more effective. So I personally think that the round ones that would be more effective would be fine. I don't see any reason not to approve those. But
Jessica, one other question. When you read us the approval that the commission had done in a prior project for sunlights, right?
Oh, when the setup for a minor review, for a staff review?
That was very clearly defined as to exactly what that was and what was approved and not approved. And so would there be anything that we would want to put into this such that if this is a 16-inch radius, circumference, I forget which, 16 inches total across, whichever one that is,
Diameter.
right? Thank you, diameter. That we somehow put that into it so that someone says, great, I want 42-inch diameter, and I don't care that it goes across.
No, I mean, I think, I think what you're talking about is precedent, and, it's possible somebody could look at this case as an example for them to do the same thing. So that's an accurate concern. At least, it is on the back and similar to that. I guess the only thing is if you wanted to put the condition back in that it, verify that it doesn't work to have the flat one, that would be the only thing I could really think of that you would do unless you did not want to approve these, because I don't think they're going to, it's a standard product. And so I don't, maybe you can get a custom giant one.
You can get them up to 24 inches.
Oh, okay.
So-
I don't know. I was kind of imagining that maybe they only came kind of in one diameter, but I don't know. But
regardless, the commission will need to approve any of these projects. moving
yeah,
forward.
they would. But yeah, I guess if it does come in multiple diameters, then you could specify that.
What you had read there sounded very specific in what was approved, right? That it had to fit within and.
Yeah, well, and that's because typically what we're working with are the rectangular ones, and, they fit within whatever the roof joist spacing is. And the restriction there was just to not get something that was like super long. Where it might be like, wow, that's a really modern thing to do or something, more architecturally significant, basically.
Or those skylights that kind of bubble out.
Oh, yeah, or
those,
the
like,
ones that-
rectangular ones that always end up getting
yellow.
turning yellow. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you did allude to the fact that we are approving the whirligig vents on the non-public side or the,
We discourage them, and then if it's not possible to discourage them, we have approved one on the back of a house.
so it's not so much the shape or size.
It's more the modern thing sitting on or penetrating the roof and trying to minimize the impact for that. And so if you have something like those large vents where it really projects, it's a bright, shiny metal color, it can have a larger impact on the roof. And so, yes, if we can discourage those so that they just use the little box vents or ridge vents or, those more hidden vents. In fact, the house at 724 Ronalds is going to be designed with a interesting soffit vent system that we're investigating. The architect is actually investigating and seems promising, but it's not something that I've ever seen.
Is it based on historic standards?
No, it's just something that won't really be visible,
Yeah.
And so sometimes those special things that work better are more expensive, and sometimes they're not, and, it all just depends. If, any general skylight application, I think we would encourage someone just to use the rectangular ones. We have a specific need here to get the light into a different area of the house than you can typically do easily with a typical rectangular skylight. And so at least going with that in order to accomplish what their needs seems to be, an appropriate way to go.
Just so we're clear, we wouldn't allow anything on the other side.
The staff recommendation would be not to allow the skylights on the other side. But again, the commission could decide to approve something like that. Typically, you'd base it on an exception.
Right.
Okay, so in this case, we might revise the motion. I would
You
ask-
can revise it however you want. I do suggest that you make a motion before you have further discussion,
Okay,
so that you can discuss that motion.
sure. Would anybody like to make a motion at this point?
I'll figure it out.
It can be
I'm just trying-
amended, so, don't worry about it.
Oh, so Thoman moves to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 430 Brown Street as presented in the application with the following conditions. The low-profile option is used instead of the fisheye lens.
Okay. Now, further commission discussion, if there is any opposition to that motion.
So what we had talked about was that the vendor didn't recommend the low profile on a north-facing roof. So I would think we would want a motion that allows
approve the fisheye
allows for the
lens.
fisheye lens.
And under the condition that it is placed on the non-street side view.
Well, and the application calls for them to be on the non-street side, so I don't think you need to specify that part.
Okay.
Did you want to
So-
amend your motion?
So,
You don't
If
have-
you want to amend your motion, you can do it, or you guys can just
Okay.
cancel that and make a new motion.
so Thoman would like to amend her motion and would like to move to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 430 Brown Street as presented in the application, which includes the fisheye lens.
Yep.
Brown second?
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I was late.
All right.
We got there.
Yes.
First one, new commission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Send pics.
Good job, Jordan.
Thanks. All right. Report on certificates issued by chair and staff.
Actually, no, we have to do this one first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 2, 511 South Lucas Street.
Okay, so this project is, it was deferred from the June agenda at the applicant's request. It's in the Governor Lucas Street Conservation District. Yep, that's it. It's over here in this mixture of contributing properties. Here is an image of it from, I believe, last November. And it shows, it's basically a 4-square. It does have a little bump out on the north side. It has vinyl siding. It, at this point in time, has 5/1 windows in most of them. This one is 6/1. I don't know why we have that. And then here's the back of it. This is also from Google, and it shows these little fixed sash windows and another 5/1. And basically, they're all 5/1 original windows. The property was purchased, and the owners replaced all of the windows with vinyl, single hung single light windows. And it was discovered, and so they were given a notice of violation of the zoning code for doing the work without approval. And then they submitted the application, and the application provided the information about the windows that they put in so that we knew exactly what they were. And then they provided this documentation of the existing windows. So typically with a window approval project, somebody submits an application, and one of my colleagues and I go out and look at the windows, and we look at each and every individual window. It's not the case of, one is bad, let's replace them all. Our goal is to retain the historic windows because they're made for the house and fit that house and can have an indefinite lifespan. The storm windows themselves will need to be replaced over time. So when we review them, things like cracked paint, cracked glazing putty, missing paint and glazing putty, broken glass, missing glass, broken and missing weights or sash cords, trim, all of these things are repairable conditions. And so we look for actual rot or something that's just really wrong. Sometimes we've had a case where a window, someone had decided to epoxy the glass in instead of using glazing putty. It effectively ruins the windows because you can't ever do it again. It doesn't come off. And so for that one, it was necessary for multiple reasons to replace the sashes on that one. Anyway, so we would go out and review them. So when we're looking at these photos, we don't see from these photos what we would need to see to approve the replacement of these windows. We would need more information. We do see that the storm window does not fit the window because they've filled in with something above. So it was just a stock size window on a larger historic window. We do see that there's some paint that's no longer there, but we can't tell the condition of these windows. Here we can see that there's been questionable glazing. I don't know what that is. But again, we were not given the chance to review the windows. And so, the staff recommendation would probably be that they're not beyond repair because we do not have the proof to show that. Regardless, the windows are gone. And so the project comes before you because of the fact that the windows that they installed don't meet the requirements of the guidelines. The original windows were double hung, the new windows are single hung. The new windows are vinyl instead of wood or metal clad wood. The new windows are just a single light sash instead of a 5/1 or 6/1 like the front window. And in addition, they don't meet the requirements that they are the same size as the existing window because they used what's known in the construction industry as a pocket replacement window. This is an entire window and frame that sits within the frame of the original window. And so it reduces the size of the view out. And so we pointedly don't actually approve pocket replacements. When people want to replace a window, they're talking about replacing the whole window and frame. So it's fairly invasive. That's another reason why we discourage it. And we do tend to approve sash replacement first. In a sash replacement, they really have to replace both sashes because they'll put a jam liner in there that allows the new windows to friction fit instead of using the ropes and weights, so they can actually insulate the weight pocket and stuff like that. But so there were multiple things about these windows that we could not approve. here are some shots after. You can see the single pane of glass. The fact that it steps in here is how it's smaller and everything. So the project was, we held off the first month because we were working with the owners, and they have been responsive. They do live in Chicago, but we've talked to them multiple times. And then they deferred last time because they have been working on what they're going to do. They have notified me that they would like to let you know that they do agree with the staff recommendation. And so I'll go over that, but just to let you know, they do agree with that. So this will be slightly complicated, and so if you have any questions, let me know. Their application is to replace the windows as I've said, with the vinyl windows. The staff recommendation is to deny that because those windows do not meet our guidelines. Whenever we deny something, denying it allows them to appeal if they want. And so that's a good practice. If we cannot approve what they did or approve it with conditions, then deny it, so that gives them the opportunity to appeal. So therefore, we have a first motion, and all motions are said in the affirmative. It's just if you want to deny it, you vote no instead of yes. And so the first motion is to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the project as presented in the application. And then you would vote to approve or deny that. Staff has made a recommendation that allows the commission some leniency. These windows do not follow the guidelines. So the commission could decide to approve the replacement of all the windows with windows that would follow the guidelines. You can certainly do that. Staff decided to allow for the leniency by creating a motion that replaces the windows on the front of the house with new windows that follow the guidelines, and replacing the other vinyl windows as they fail or before with windows that match those on the front. This makes it clear we have a clause in our guidelines that allows someone to use vinyl in the future if they already have all vinyl windows. And that's in case somebody replaced their windows right before their district was made. We know their windows aren't going to last very long, so they can keep replacing them with vinyl forever if they would like to. This last part takes away that possibility so that there is no misunderstanding that they can continue to use vinyl in the future when they need to replace it. So this allows them to just do the front of the house and replace the rest in time. If you're not comfortable with that, you could put further stipulations on it. They need to do it within a certain amount of time. That would be completely up to the commission because it's allowing for leniency, and that is totally up to you. But then you'd make that motion as you want it to be, and then approve or deny it.
Okay, clarifying questions?
How long do vinyl windows usually last?
It's mixed, and I don't know. I'm assuming they have a limited warranty of 5 to 10 years, but I don't actually know that. I don't work with them, so I don't know.
Do we know if there's a shorter time window because they're like those pocket windows?
No, I don't know that either. And frankly, I don't actually know if they are just vinyl, solid vinyl, or vinyl clad. Let me look for a second at the sheet. If they're vinyl clad, they have more stability. The material stability is greater, and so they would technically probably last longer. If they're just vinyl, that means they're hollow, and so they wouldn't have anything but the vinyl as their structure, and so they would tend to warp or break down faster.
The Google says 20 to 40 years.
I would be really surprised.
With perfect execution every time.
Right. We have a sorority on Washington Street. It's a Spanish tile roof, all white windows. They replaced their windows with vinyl windows right before that district was created, and I'd have to look up when that was, but I think in 2016 or 2017, we approved the replacement of all their vinyl windows again. So,
What happens if the owners of this property sell it before finishing the replacement of these vinyl windows?
assuming that the front part's done,
Yeah.
it would still basically be the same because we'd have the documentation of the former approval, and at least part of the staff practice right now is when we're reviewing projects, we look back at all the past approvals. Whether or not that will be carried through, I don't know.
If the current owners had come to you to ask about the project from the beginning, then they would have done if they wanted to replace, well, if they wanted to fix, they wouldn't have replaced the windows. If the windows were not repairable and they wanted to replace them, they would have been with all using whatever these windows are that will end up getting approved for the front of the house if we go down that path of approvals, right?
Right, yeah. So if they'd come to us, we would have reviewed the condition, and if they actually were beyond repair, then, we would have approved specific windows that they would have submitted, and it would have been wood or metal-clad wood, matching the configuration of the existing windows. We would have started with whether or not a sash replacement will work or not. I'm also thinking that it's possible, since these are pocket replacements, they might be able to use a sash replacement, which should reduce the cost. It depends if there was enough left from when they installed their pocket replacements so that they could just add a jam liner and then 2 sashes and make it work. I've seen that happen, but every situation is slightly different, and I'm not familiar with this product and its installation. So we will help them towards that. I would assume that would be less expensive, but I don't overall know.
What is the consequence for a homeowner at this point if they don't follow the recommendation?
It's a violation of the zoning code. They have a fine. That's about it.
Do we know the ballpark figure of the fine?
It's not very much.
Okay.
It's less than $1,000, I believe.
Okay. So in a sense, I mean, I'm really, so we can recommend whatever we believe is reasonable, helpful, and will kind of help both historic preservation and the homeowner. And then essentially they can do almost whatever they want, given the price comparison, but I mean,
that's the way it is with all of the projects.
yeah.
We don't have a whole lot of teeth.
Right.
We don't inspect after the work is done and stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes, since it's a rental property, sometimes there is, a little bit of ability to require things are done properly for that.
Do we know if they own other properties?
No, I don't know. I'm assuming it's a situation where they own it for, a college-age student and stuff. It seems that way, but I don't really know.
Okay.
And you guys can do, whatever you think is reasonable. If there's a concern that they won't ever follow through, you could say, okay, within 5 years, or whatever you thought was reasonable, or something like that. If, you could make it, I don't know.
So the recommendation, this recommends replacing the window with wood or metal-clad wood windows.
Yes.
From the front, and then as needed.
Yeah, it would be to replace the front ones, all, 3 or 4 of them, with, we could look at that.
Is the
but
trim intact, do we know, on the inside?
I'm assuming that, with a pocket replacement, they're just sitting inside the historic frame, so yeah, it is. And, you know, based on our experience, the trim's intact on the outside too. It's just covered with a vinyl siding, but we won't know that.
Right, okay.
But yeah, so the approval as recommended by staff would replace these 3 windows. We would honestly talk to them first about sash replacement, see if that works. Both because if it's cheaper for them, I mean, we're all about that as well. And then the other windows on the sides as they come up or need to be replaced or
And
whatever.
you gave the
use.
example of the sorority house on Washington Street, right?
What?
You gave the example of the sorority house that changed them all, and then what was the thing between them, like, how long was the replacement process? Not process, but how long did the window last, I guess?
I don't know. Let me look and see when that district was created. Okay, so they're in the College Hill Conservation District, and that district was designated in 2003. And so,
15.
you know, between 2000 and 2003, they probably replaced their windows. I would assume it's closer to the 2003, you know, because they wanted to get it done right before. And it was 2016 or so when we approved them, so, you know, maybe 15 years. So they, you know, the existing ones could last that long.
And the lower end of your Google search said like 20?
Yeah.
All right, do we have any other clarifying questions? Public comment? Sherry?
I'll introduce myself. I'm Sherry DeGraw, and I was a former commissioner on the Historic Preservation Commission, and I'm now with the Friends of Historic Preservation. And my only comment that I was thinking of is, I think if they go against what they're supposed to do, the city has the ability to not give them more future building permits until they correct the problem that needs addressing. Is that? That's what I
helpful
recall.
information. Yep.
Or there's that kind of authority.
Maybe.
Is there a way for us to confirm that? I mean, not necessarily on the spot, but if we decide that there's information that would be helpful for us to craft a motion that says exactly what we want it to say, we could defer the motion to July, which is not ideal, but we deferred once and they deferred once and we defer again. If that let us do it with proper information.
I guess that's not necessarily the way that I have really felt that it seems to work.
Yeah, I just feel like we're kind of getting away from the spirit of why we're here, maybe a little bit, because we don't have the ultimate teeth to control what everybody's houses look like, but we do have some teeth. But ultimately, we're trying to make the historic relevance enticing, so homeowners just want to do it because it's better.
Well,
You know,
And it
so.
sounds like the homeowners are receptive to this alternative.
Right.
I do want to say, though, I feel like it's tempting to, I think we've moved into commission discussion at this point, unless you have anything more, Sherry.
Well, if it's a college student family, they're probably on a 4-year cycle.
Exactly. So I was going to say, I think it can be tempting when you like see the vinyl siding and you know, to just kind of give leeway. But really, the possibility that a new homeowner will come along and want to completely rehabilitate a historic home, there's the potential that the home could actually be brought back to some kind of splendor. And so what we're doing is like putting the brakes on and reversing it a little bit as much as we can, and that's why we're here. So I would, I think that, you know, I think that that's what's on the table right now, and it seems like that's a fair option. And really, the reason we're serving on what this commission exists is so that even if it's a long road, you know, historic preservation still exists in the future, even if it's not visible. So somebody, I would say it's very likely somebody could buy the house after the student graduates and take the siding off and, move forward with rehabilitation,
And
so.
I don't want to be a part of a commission that has just this overall general negative impression throughout the community. I think that's not why we're here, is to, butt heads with everybody about their projects.
No, I mean, the timeline, the kind of like broad timeline, the forgiving timeline, I think is very, very fair. But I do think we have to, especially with windows, that's what historic preservation, that's like the hill that we die on. It makes sense. But I don't know if it's what etiquette is, before a motion is made, to discuss the motions that are on the table.
This one's kind of complicated because you're likely going to have two motions. So, I mean, you should, you can't do them both at the same time. So you're going to have to make a motion and vote on it, and then make another motion and vote on it. And so it would be best to discuss each motion then, if you guys feel like you have an idea of where you are on it.
From a discussion standpoint, my sense is we probably all agree on the first motion, which is approving all of the vinyl windows as installed.
Oh, no, I don't at all.
We have to
No,
approve
no,
it, though.
the motion is to
Making
do
the
that.
motion.
To do,
And then we'll disapprove.
And then vote.
And we all, I feel like there's probably consensus on how we feel about that option.
So we should start with it.
We have to start with.
Right.
Right, so Brown moves that to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the project of 511 South Lucas as presented in the application.
Sullivan second. All in favor?
Well, you can discuss it if you want.
So seems a hard no for most of us.
All in favor?
Me.
Those opposed?
Okay.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed?
Yes, opposed.
Yes,
You can
Affirmative
say,
opposed.
How do we form that?
yeah, I think you might say nay, I don't know.
All in favor, if you're in favor, say yay, and then if you're not, say nay.
Well,
perhaps.
you do them separately. So you'd say all in favor, everybody would say if they wanted to, and then you'd say opposed, and then everybody could say nay. Yay or nay.
Okay, well, that motion has been rejected wholeheartedly, it seems.
Okay.
So moving on to would another commissioner like to make a second motion?
Beck moves to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 511 South Lucas Street, replacing the windows on the front of the house with new windows that follow the guidelines, and replacing the other vinyl windows as they fail or before with windows that match those on the front.
Stork seconds.
All in favor?
Do we have any discussion on this one?
Oh, do we have discussion?
The only thing I would say, and no, I appreciate the observation about whether it's negative and butting heads. My concern with this is simply that whether someone did or didn't know, right, does it provide the message that you can just kind of go and do what you want?
Oh, it absolutely does.
And if someone decides that they want to just do that, right, then, and again, there's nothing we can do about it, which is the unfortunate part, right? Because I don't know I don't know how well-known that is, but there we go. Now we've said it. Anyways.
But our job is to protect future historic preservation.
Yes.
I mean, that is why we are here.
Yes.
So it is, in a sense, our responsibility.
Do we know the contractor that
Consider
did,
that.
who the contractor is that did the work?
No, I mean, I just think that they hired Pella, and I don't know if they had a Pella contractor or their own contractor or what.
Does Pella have, I'm just curious, like, do the contractors, I'm sure like some smaller scrappier contractors, maybe not, but like Pella or Kniebel, do they have ties with city commissions like zoning and historic preservation at all? Do they have any responsibility whatsoever? Or they're just hired as a contractor, so they have no responsibility to be
Right,
in
no,
touch?
they're, they'd just be hired as a contractor.
I mean, I asked because, Martin Construction was present for the last one, so.
I guess I don't understand your question.
Well, it just, for, like, if it was Pella or whoever the contractor was, there's no consequence for the contractor to come out and install a window that doesn't meet guidelines without an application or anything in a historic district.
Since this is tied to the zoning code, it's the homeowner's responsibility to follow it. And so I do believe that it was deferred because the homeowner was talking to their lawyer about whether or not Pella could be held responsible. And they decided that they agreed with our recommendation. So I'm assuming that means that that's what that answer is.
Okay.
And, speaking to the commission, our guidelines are clear on this. It is within your right to say they all need to be replaced now. Leniency could be some now, some later. It could also be that you put a time constraint on that later because of the fact that it is very open-ended. It is still lenient if it's not done all at once, because the guidelines could allow you to do it all at once. So
I'm really torn about, I think that changing them on the front immediately is important, but about replacing the others more quickly before they fail, I'm a bit torn because let's just throw all the vinyl windows in the trash. It's tough to say, this
There's
is
that.
consistent with some of our environmental goals as well. So, I don't know.
And it seems like any of the recommendations, or at least the things that we've talked about for how long that, let's 10, 15, whatever years, we've been leaning on the side of when do we think they're going to fail? So it seems like this already kind of covers that, I guess.
I would say it's a very well thought out motion. It covers most of the bases. So, with that in mind, should we vote? Has somebody presented the motion?
Yep.
Okay.
There's a
all in
motion
favor?
on the table.
Yep.
Can I go back just real quick? If this house is sold or the ownership changes, does the commission track, does your office track these type of projects occurring again, coming up again? Like, say, 4 years down the road, are you going to remember, oh my gosh, it's that house?
Right. Well, and that's where, currently, it's a very, very important part of my process on reviewing a project to go back and look these up. Right. And, that was how I was trained, and I have learned the hard way that that's an incredibly important step, because there is sometimes things are approved with conditions that affect things in the future. And there was one I didn't look at, and it almost was bad. And so even in our new software system on our side, we have kind of steps we follow and a workflow that we mark off, and it includes looking back at past projects, whether or not other staff in the future will skip that, whether or not our records, which are not digital currently, will be destroyed by fire or flood or something else. None of these things, there are no guarantees. So it's always possible that it could be missed, but at the same time, we will do everything that we can not to miss it.
Will, when they have to, let's say their windows fail and they want to replace them, right? Will they still have to come through your office to replace them? It's still going to be an issue, right?
Yeah. Technically, yes. They should come back through our office.
They should.
At the same time, they will know what their approved window is. And so if they happen to just do it and put in the right window, we wouldn't probably issue them another violation because they actually, did what was, technically this also can approve it for the future. So they could just do it and get it done. Because it's not requiring they come back. And once we approve that product, as long as it still exists, they can continue to use it.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay.
Great. Item E, report on certificates issued by chair and staff.
Okay, and so this was my last time working with Kevin on projects, so I'll be calling you.
Oh, boy.
Or whoever. I guess we have to figure that out. Okay, so, I'm sorry about the projection here, but this is 1409 Sheridan Avenue. It's a cute little bungalow that's right along the creek. It actually has a screened-in porch where they tried to work with the architecture. I was pleasantly surprised about this because it's pretty glorious. Anyway, it has some porch repairs. Some of this railing will be replaced, things will be painted, and just some basic porch repairs. This minor review, this is 428 East Jefferson Street, a little four square that used to have an open porch. It's covered in metal siding. They need to work on their front steps. It's a rental, so they were cited for the housing inspectors. This is, I call these site stairs just because they're out in the yard and they go from the sidewalk to the yard. And then these are the porch stairs. Our guidelines are really clear that a wood porch, which is what is under here, has wood stairs, and a concrete porch, which is what the house next door would have, or a masonry, it's brick. So they would have concrete stairs. So that means that we could not approve these stairs as concrete again. They'd have to be wood. So they're repairing them so they can remain concrete, at least for now. This set they'll replace. Interestingly, the property line for this whole block goes like right about where the arrow is. And so all properties that have that situation, if they need to replace the steps, have to acquire a temporary use of right-of-way permit from the engineering department. Fascinating, isn't it? But anyway, I think they intend to keep the sidewalls and just replace the steps.
What about I'm curious about the handrail.
Both grandfathered in right now, and they did not intend to do anything that would require its replacement. The simple wood one, it's not ideal, but it's okay. This one, yeah, it would have been another thing that would have been removed if they had to replace those steps, because we don't approve wrought iron, at least not on a house built before 1960. So this property, I put a little more information in here because I am absolutely fascinated by this property. It shows up on the 1868 bird's eye view drawing map thing that we have of Iowa City. So it was built before that. This is the 1899 Sanborn map, and it shows that it is pink. Pink means that it is brick. And it has two individual porches. They would have had roofs. In fact, we have one image somewhere with a roof, and then some rear additions. This is two-story, two-dwelling, metal roof, one-story, metal roof, one-story, metal roof. The fact that this is dashed means this is an open porch, so is this. Two little outbuildings. 1906, boarded over. So interestingly, for a very long time, it has had wood siding. Obviously, they've combined the porches. There was a roof that was removed. It's covered in, I believe, asbestos now. Lots of things. But I mean, look at this door. Anyway, so
So it was originally a duplex?
yeah, yeah, and a super old house.
Cool.
It's been owned by the same owner for quite a long time as a rental property, but man, I just would like to fix.
Oh, really?
Lives there?
Go in?
You wouldn't want to.
Okay.
No, no, I'm sure that the inside and outside are similar, but
I never would have guessed that old.
yeah, really.
Bike from him.
Yes, you did.
A specialized.
Anyway, the current project is just to replace the steps and the railing on the steps. And the railing on the steps will follow our guidelines. This railing does not, but it's not being replaced right now.
Okay.
So,
Keep our eye on it.
Jordan,
Yep.
is that your bike in the picture?
No, nope. Wait, what,
thing.
is there a bike?
what? Huh? There's a bike?
No, I bought a bike from a resident of that building.
Oh. Okay, intermediate review. So the senior center, our old post office, is going to go through a thorough exterior rehabilitation. They have hired a very specific historic preservation architect, Pete Franks from Franks Design Group from Western Iowa. They came through and did a thorough study of the condition of the building and discovered some very interesting things. So one of the things is the fact that the building itself is constructed out of brick. The limestone is just a thin fascia material that covers the whole thing. The cornice at this level, like a mid-level cornice, that actually is solid limestone. It goes through from the outside of the building to the inside of the building, all the way through. So you could think of that as a cap, because the brick construction of the wall, it probably has multiple withes, which are the walls, basically.
You say it goes through it, like the floor, it extends through with.
Yeah, it's probably at the floor level. I mean, because this attic space has a weird head height and stuff. But yeah, it not through the floor, it's through the entire thickness of the wall.
Okay,
Because you
gotcha.
could think of this part as like a thin veneer. I mean, I don't know exactly how thick it is, but it's inches thick. And then this part not only projects pretty far, but then it has a tail that fills the whole section of the wall, which is just fascinating. Along with this is the fact that the way they constructed these piers here means that they are just exposed brick on the roof side. So there's no like cladding, there's no limestone covering over that. Bricks have joints, mortar joints fail, they need to be repointed. There's a lot going on here, but the overall condition assessment showed us that the whole railing system and these piers are falling outwards. Because as the brick has been repointed, the joints have expanded, basically pushing outwards. The reason I'm going into this detail is because you will likely get questions about what's going on with the senior center. The entire railing will come down and be reconstructed. So all of the bricks will be reset. So I think that they're using actually concrete block instead as a backing. It'll last longer and it's not visible, and so we would be okay with that. The architect's drawings have a very convenient scope of work for the exterior projects, so I can go through that with you. Okay. Basic repair, restoration, and rehabilitation of the exterior envelope at the existing 1929 building. That's when the addition was done. So they'll dismantle and reconstruct the existing limestone parapet piers to correct for out-of-square and out-of-plumb condition, reconstructing with reinforced CMU cores. This means that they'll put steel reinforcement in the cores of the concrete block. If you've ever looked at them, they have holes. So they'll put reinforcement and concrete in there so that those will be much more solid than they have ever been. And they will reuse the existing stone for the exterior, except where damaged or deteriorated beyond repair. And they took extensive detailed photographs. So we could see some of these stone pieces, especially in the railing, like all of these little spindles. There are some where like acid rain has made them thinner and smaller. There's pitting in some are cracked and stuff like that. They'll install a new membrane roof, which is some part of the approval process, with proper roof termination, which is part of the problem why the brick failed. We won't go into that. And then they will do a full exterior veneer restoration. So will remove and replace any panels that are deteriorated beyond repair. So you might see on the wall individual pieces that are also replaced. They'll be replaced with new limestone that matches. And they also, so it is pointed with a mortar, just like bricks are. It's just really thin and small. And so that'll happen as well. They will use as you can kind of see here, there's some staining. There's a lot of staining around this cornice. They'll use a chemical that's meant for this process to clean the stone. And as far as the stone goes, the only thing that was questionable from a staff point of view is that they had proposed to use some sealant. Sealant with masonry is highly controversial because it can prevent the stone from breathing, so water that gets in there can be trapped and then cause the stone to burst apart when it freezes. Our guidelines disallow sealant, and the National Park Service treatment for masonry also would disallow that. And so we asked them about it. The National Park Service guidance actually, it's not that it disallows it, it talks about making sure that it's not the whole building, that it's a certain type, and it allows it to breathe and a variety of things. So we did ask them about this. The amount of staining and deterioration that they're getting on the surface of this cornice is huge. And so their intent is actually only to put sealant on the top surface, allowing the rest of that stone to breathe still, not being anything that's visible, so if it causes the stone on that surface to stain. And so staff did feel that that was an appropriate installation. The other thing is, so all of the windows, not the trim, but the windows were replaced when it became the senior center. And these were multi-light windows, like, I don't know, 16 little squares or something like that. It was not this pattern whatsoever. But all of the wood trim exists, so they will be repairing all of the wood trim and replacing all of the windows with windows that follow our guidelines. So basically, they'll match the historic configuration, which is sweet.
So what could we expect?
So, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't give you that image. You can pass it along, but here's one of the elevation drawings.
That looks cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the storefront doors will be replaced as well, just because they've reached the end of their lifespan. So generally, this easily follows all of historic preservation guidelines that we would have and that the National Park Service would put out for a listed building, which is what it is.
I think that's going to look so much nicer with the windows.
Yeah.
It's weird. I never really look at this building. It's never done anything for me. So maybe that will do something
Yeah.
for me.
But it'll likely look really invasive to the public. And
Yeah.
so I'm expecting I'll get calls, they'll probably get calls, you might get questions. And so it's been completely reviewed and it will retain the historic character of the building and as many materials as possible. Another thing that came up is they asked to be able to replace some of these little balusters with cast stone. Cast stone is used in the industry a lot, and it allows you to, make things that are shaped a lot easier because you can cast them instead of having to turn them on a lathe, which with stone on a lathe is, a difficult thing. I had worked in architecture in the past, and we had specified cast stone. I went through and looked at some other options of it, and because of the fact that we're talking about something that is way up here on the parapet, we did approve them the option to use cast stone if that works better for the feasibility of replacing those. It hopefully could help reduce costs significantly. So, and they would only do it with the ones that they needed to replace.
What's the scope of the project time-wise?
I don't remember, but I'm assuming that it is either later this year or early next year, and I'm actually not sure that the funding is involved yet. I don't know where they are on the funding, and the project isn't out to bid because we had to approve it first, so soon, but I don't know.
Okay.
I could get you that if you needed it. Anyway, and I gave you a map of our downtown historic district, which is listed in the National Register, but is not a local district as well. 625 South Governor Street here in the Governor Lucas Conservation District is putting in a fence around most of their yard from the face back that will be 8 feet tall. It will be a solid fence, and it will be painted with a mural on one side.
Are we seeing?
So the mural, this is their, so, okay, they have a cross-section. It shows that it'll have a footing. It's made out of wood. They say that it will be plaster, but, I mean, it will be stucco. I mean, they're
This
the
is just
same.
an example of what
This
the
is an
mural-
example,
Okay.
yeah. The owner of this house is an artist.
Okay.
And the house next door has an extensive 1960s apartment building attached to the back of it. An entire apartment building with its parking lot. And so, granted, most of it is to go along this, between the parking lot and their yard, and then back across the alley, which is a heavily student population traveled alley. And from their perspective, they're putting a mural along there from the outside. On the inside, I don't know what they'll do with it. They sent me a YouTube video of somebody who did this type of project, and that person, planted things on the wall on the inside. So, yeah, I don't know. It came to us for review because it was taller than 6 feet. And so it needed a permit.
And that in the back of the house, right? It's not.
Right. They provided a little map that showed that they'll have a short 4-foot fence from the corner of the house, basically forward along the property line. And then the taller fence would be from the corner of the house back around the back of the property. And it's only on that one side and the alley side.
Okay. Item F, consideration of minutes for June 8, 2023.
Is a motion?
Do I have a motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve consideration of minutes for June 8th, 2023.
A second?
Stork seconds the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item G, commission discussion.
Yep. And so first, we have a new commissioner, Andrew Lewis, who just joined us now. So welcome, Andrew. If you want to tell them about yourself, you can.
I don't know. I've lived here for quite some time. I came here for grad school. I moved into a house on Davenport, so I'm in Goosetown, ? So then figured once I knew that there was a spot, I was like, well, let's learn what, I don't know, the rules are. Yeah, I work at the university in the Center for Language and Culture Learning.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I guess next, we do need to have an election of officers, because right now we have a vice chair we're running on, and we have no chair. And so we need to hold an election for both of them. And if you don't want to run this, I can, but does anyone want to be chair?
I would be happy to do it if nobody else wants to do it.
So the duties of chair and vice chair. Okay, so obviously you run the meeting. If you're chair, you run it every time that you're here, and if you're vice chair, you run it when the chair isn't here. And we do have, a way that we go through it, but obviously, this is one of Jordan's first times, and, we don't have a lot of audience. And so I can help you with that. And Kevin was really good at it, because he works in politics. And so.
But he also asked a lot of questions, which I appreciate.
Right. But if somebody wanted, I think he gave you a list of what to say when, and we could get that as a more formal thing, for sure. I will, it's great if the chair can kind of have an idea of what's going on at council. Sometimes I know these things and sometimes I don't. Because sometimes it would be good if a representative whether it's the chair or somebody else, could attend a meeting. I will also, every time we have a certificate of no material effect or an intermediate review, I will send the chair an email and I'll describe it and say, what do you think? And then they'll either respond or call and we'll have questions. We tend to talk about what's on the agenda in advance. And how much contact or how much you want to be in charge depends on you, really, you know? I usually get to the point where I'm pretty much going to approve something, but I let the chair know unless I think it's a weird thing, and then I'll have a bigger conversation. But if a new chair wants to have a much bigger role at first, especially, I'm totally on board with that. So that's just however you want to do it. But it is best if I can sort of reach you or know when I won't be able to reach you, just in case. Because sometimes I don't review them until I want to get them approved because I don't have time. And then the chair would do the same thing when the vice chair is gone. And that's about it.
And as far as like the awards go, that's really, I don't recall Kevin really having like a heavy hand in that process.
No, I mean, typically the chair will write something about the year in review and deliver that. And that's typically the role of the chair in the awards, but, you know, we can work through those things too. You don't have to be a writer. That's not a requirement. You do have to be willing to speak up on a microphone in front of people. So, anyone want to nominate themselves or someone else to be chair?
Well, Jordan, you're interested?
I nominate Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean, I will carry on what I've been doing. I'm happy to, as long as I have a vice chair who's available when I'm not. So,
Okay, so no other nominations? If that's the case, then I think you guys could vote of whether or not you want Jordan to be your chair.
okay, should we do a motion or is it just a vote? And should I step out? This is awkward.
You don't need to step out.
Okay.
Sure, make a motion.
Okay.
Brown, so moved.
Second?
Beck seconds?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a chair, so now we need a vice chair. Who thinks that they could potentially be available sometimes? I mean, you know, if neither of you are here, we cancel the meeting.
So my term is through 2024, I believe, or 2025,
Yeah, one of those two.
one of those two. So I don't know if that's helpful. If
Well,
they're-
and we would vote each year.
it is each year?
We
Okay.
do an annual vote, so it's not like from now on.
Okay.
And if you do it now, and then in 6 months you need to not, then we would
Okay.
have another vote. It's
right.
not like,
So if you only have a year left, it's like, this still, vice chair is still viable?
oh, yeah, totally.
All right.
I mean, in the past, we have really worked hard to make it so that the vice chair could take over for the chair, you know, but it's not a requirement, so we just need somebody.
I'd like to nominate Carl. I don't know, you just seem very comfortable discussing and moving things forward,
Sure,
so.
I would be happy to be vice chair. I am sometimes concerned about my attendance.
That would be my only concern, I
Right.
think.
But absent that concern, sure, so we could see if there are other options, because I suppose if the other option is to not have a vice chair, well, then attendance is relevant.
Are any others interested? Any hats in the ring?
Is anyone else kind of interested but just doesn't want to say so?
Come on, Nicole. No.
Oh, I'm good.
I'll say I'm kind of interested.
Are
I'm not
you?
afraid to say that. But
Are you?
I'm also worried about my availability, just.
I mean, I do think availability is important. I would say that's probably one of the more important aspects of it. Because, I mean, you can have somebody step in for the vice chair, but I don't know how that works.
So generally, for those that don't know, I work for a company that's based out of California, and so once a month I'm out there for a week, and sometimes that week coincides with what we have here. And since unfortunately I am not allowed to participate remotely, although I offer to do so every time, but the city currently doesn't allow that. Because the state won't let them allow it. Yes, that's true. Anyway, so that's the reason. But I guess since I often know that far enough ahead of time, is there anything we can do to say, oh,
So
no one's going to be our vice chair for next month?
Yeah, now, at least the one with Kevin, we would tend to know in advance, and so then we would reach out to Jordan to see if she was available.
It was almost always a month or two in advance as
Yeah.
well.
So, I mean, I guess that I don't know how often you know when you're not going to be available or if it's more spontaneous or not. But if you did tend to know in advance, then we would have a better idea about Carl's availability in advance too, right?
Sure. No, obviously, I don't know the times that I'm not here, if you're here or not, and I didn't look at the attendance records. Are you generally available every month?
Well, generally.
Yeah, your attendance has been good.
I've gotten lucky with the timing of certain vacations and travel, so I've been gone a lot more than the meetings and attendance has indicated. But
I don't know, it's between you guys. Just
Right.
I'm glad you spoke up, because I didn't.
I would, I almost feel like there could be an anonymous vote for a vice chair. I don't know if that's is that a possibility?
I think Noah and I are probably comfortable with people just figuring out and saying what they're good with. I'm speaking for Noah. I apologize for doing so.
Can we have 2 vice chairs?
Yeah, there's not really a spot for that. We could start, yeah, if you wanted to vote for Carl and we get, 6 months down the road and Carl has not been able to meet his, obligation, then Carl could step down and we could get a new one.
A deputy vice
Or,
An assistant to the
or we could do the same thing with Noah.
Okay.
Noah, I would happly support you as vice chair.
And yeah, I'd support, yeah, I'd be torn.
I nominate Noah as vice chair.
Rock, paper, scissors? Who will take the nomination?
Noah, if you have an interest, I think you should go for it. And next year, when you become chair, then I'll try out the vice chair.
Ooh, I
Maybe.
like this idea.
political intrigue.
I was going to nominate Deanna.
Okay, you guys, let's get this going.
Noah, what are your thoughts?
I'm just kind of 50-50. I really,
I would tend to say by attendance, it would probably make more sense for you to be vice chair. I've looked back, I'm consistently missing, on average, every other one.
Okay.
It averages out.
I didn't realize that.
I know, it's pretty bad.
So what, we just do Villanueva nominates, motions nominate Noah? I don't know, as vice chair?
Does anybody have a motion for the nomination of vice chair?
Villanueva motion for Noah as vice chair?
Brown, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Hi. Okay, so we have new
Yes, you're welcome.
I'll need your number.
Sillergren and Stork. Okay, just also, I had 2 other things, sorry. First, we got a civil rights grant in 2016. We put 2 properties on the National Register. We put up instructional or informative signage out in front of them. The signage in front of 942 Iowa Avenue was damaged. It was reported to me. I reported it to the police, and so we've taken it down to get it repaired, and we're working on that. It was just one half of it, and it was the only sign probably just, drunken opportunity. I don't know. But just so you're aware, because I have gotten calls about the missing sign as well.
Okay.
So 942, both sides are gone right now. They're in the office of the streets superintendent, and we'll get them one fixed and put them back on. Also, our awards are coming up, and I frankly cannot remember who's on my awards committee. And so I need to know.
I had volunteered to help.
Okay,
And me.
okay.
See, I'd rather write than
Great.
lead from here.
And Sherry is, with Friends, and so she'll be representing Friends a little bit as far as this goes. We'll work with them.
I'm always happy to do photos.
Okay. So a couple things. Let me actually write down your names this time. Committee. So very soon, we're going to need to schedule a meeting because I am behind. We need to pick the winners and get going. And so next week soon, I will send out an email to try to get that scheduled. Same. Also, I got an email from Channel 4, who does our video stuff. And, okay. So since it's our 40th anniversary, we're thinking of having them do a little video about our 40th anniversary because, videos break up the whole thing and make it nice. And so they are interested in wondering if there is any one or more on the commission who want to help with that part of the project as well. I have no idea what that entails. I just barely read the email before walking down here, so I do need to get into that a little bit more. But if anyone has any, thoughts about, yay, working with Channel 4 on video and stuff, let me know. You wouldn't obviously do anything that's professional. So you'd just be a volunteer.
Can you make us a video?
So, yeah, you're not producing it. No. And they're thinking of doing things, maybe we could interview former commissioners, maybe interview a current commissioner, all sorts of things. So,
Kevin.
so anyway, I will probably come, if there's task, I might come and see if the subcommittee is not too busy, maybe they can help, but maybe I might ask for somebody else. But otherwise, keep it on your calendar, September 28th at the Highlander. We're going to pay for a cookie and juice bar in advance. They will have their lounge bar open as a cash bar afterwards, so if you want to stick around, you can check out their work.
That'll be fun.
So, yeah, it should be exciting.
I do want to say that there's a big storm coming, so.
Yeah, and that was,
Really?
that was the end, so we would just need a,
Is there usually a spot for other topics or topics for future meetings?
Yep.
did you want to suggest something for a future
did.
meeting?
Noah and I spoke briefly after the June meeting, and we were talking about the idea of adding an educational component. We will discuss it at a different meeting because that's apparently the process, right? We say
Yeah,
this, so we put it on the agenda. But the idea behind it was, I think I spent my first 2.5 years just kind of deer in the headlights, like, what am I doing on the commission? What am I supposed to be doing? And so on. And so, Jessica, you and I emailed back and forth a couple times, and I understand there are some potential challenges to making that happen, but I thought it would be a good discussion, and
Yeah.
Noah agreed, and so we would put that forth to be discussed.
If everybody wants that, we can put it on the agenda. We'll put it in the commission discussion section, and, yeah, I mean, maybe we can brainstorm, maybe the three of us can brainstorm between now and then about, like,
What that might mean, right.
and then come up with something that we can have for the commission. At least a short memo or something.
But
I
it's
don't-
on the agenda for next month to discuss.
Yeah, and
not-
so we maybe could, between now and then, say, well, wait, what are we going to discuss?
We could give some context for the discussion
Yeah.
for next.
But in the meantime,
Context.
there's the handbook, that's very, very informative. That would be a good place to start, if that's your concern. If it's like meeting process.
Well, and I think that's what we'll discuss.
Yeah,
So,
great.
yeah.
Okay,
So then we just need a motion to adjourn?
do we have a motion to adjourn?
Bowman motions to adjourn.
Beck seconds?
All in favor? Aye. Great.
Thank
I'm
you,
biking home.
everyone. Very good. Here before storms.